Hi everybody. So today we're going to have a little talk about how can we recognize that we are going through emotional abuse, because it can actually be quite subtle and quite insidious and quite difficult to recognize, especially when your mind, your brain's being scrambled by that perpetrator in your life who might be an antagonistic person, narcissistic person, um, a conflict intense person, a person with that propensity for conflict and anger, all that stuff. So we're going to have a look today at one of the elements that you might recognize in an emotional abusive situation, and that is this idea of unrealistic expectations. And the unrealistic expectations that this high conflict people have, that I will refer to as a perpetrator, because we're not diagnosing anybody with anything here, we're just talking about their behaviour in the context of a relationship. So I call them a perpetrator for that reason. So what will this behaviour look like from your perpetrator when we're talking about unrealistic expectations? So we're going to go through this. The first thing I want to look at here is that they might have direct unrealistic expectations about things like your appearance, really high standards for you. This can be things like your achievements as well. Often in that parental-child relationship, these ones can be that whatever you do, it's never quite good enough. The goalposts are always moving further away, things like that. We're going to go through that further as we go through the video. So there's that is a good place to start, but we can kind of tease it out. And I want to say here that a really strong indicator that somebody has those real overly high expectations of you is that they might outright demand that you spend all or the majority of your free time with them. And they might do that explicitly. They might say, look, you have to spend your time with me, but it can also be kind of under the radar here. And they might make it really difficult or just really miserable for you to do anything other than spend time with them. And how might that look like? Well, it can mean using emotional manipulation, things like guilt, emotional blackmail, shame, obligation, all of that stuff, and playing on your internalized beliefs and ideas, any ideas of things like duty and obligation that you might hold that are linked to your values. It could include something like questioning your commitment to them if you don't immediately agree to these excessive demands on your time. And those might even be accompanied by veiled threats of abandonment or outright threats or insults if you don't comply. And you might even notice in your body things like you might begin to feel very tired and overstretched, stretched too thinly, trying to keep up. It's like being on this treadmill of the constant demands on your time. And for anyone, that would make them feel exhausted and anxious, burned out, and the list it goes on. And that can be even more the case if you've got other caring responsibilities, if you've got children or adults that you take care of. Or you've got a demanding job, or you've got a hobby that demands a lot of training or your time. You've got musical instruments, sports, things like that. Anything that is your passion. And it can include academic study too, so it can become really taxing to keep up with that person's demands when you've got all these other things happening. So another sign is that the demands will be many. But they might not overtly demand that you don't see your friends or your family and isolate you that way. It might not show up as overt tyranny or explicit orders, commands. But but it can be very difficult for you to spend your time somewhere else and with other people. And how can I illustrate this? We think of it as imagine a stressed out parent and they've got two children. One's behaving really quietly and well and the other is having a tantrum. So of course the parent's attention goes to the naughty child. This is the confrontational person in your life. This is them, basically. They are kind of like that tantruming child. So all of your time and your attention goes to pacifying that person. So although there might not be overt demands, the dramatic and chaotic behavior that they display is going to suck up all of your time. So yeah, as well, you might notice at the beginning, often in the early stages of the relationship with your perpetrator, you might have experienced love bombing, and that can feel quite flattering. Somebody kind of pulling out all the stops and wanting to spend every waking moment with you. It can be very flattering. But it is manipulation. And why? Well, because it is designed to create this false sense of attachment. It's kind of wrapping the tendrils around you before you've had the chance to establish an authentic connection with them. So it's embedding you in with their life and their stuff, and making it more difficult for you to get away from that. And that's how a trauma bond will form. So love bombing as well. Look out for that. It can be it can be an early sign that emotional abuse is coming your way. So yeah, these people, they're kind of like pushy car salesmen. They're using all the tricks in the book to suck you into this relationship and form this kind of it's a false bond, really. It's involved with mirroring, and you might see a lot of yourself in them, but it's not an authentic connection that you will have. So the next thing that we've got here with unrealistic expectations is that the expectations that this perpetrator might have of you are completely unrealistic. They are very perfectionistic when it comes to your behaviour, but not theirs. So we've got hypocrisy, a double standard going on here. And what does this stuff look like? Well, it might be demands that make you feel uncomfortable. And they might be very difficult for you to achieve, or maybe even impossible. And that can include things like expecting you to share all of their opinions, their likes and their preferences. You're not really allowed to deviate from their party line of what's a good thing and what isn't, what's a fun thing and what isn't. So that might mean, unless you enthusiastically and positively respond to every single thing they enjoy, approve of and like, is overwhelmingly positive, then they might see that as some sort of offence or rejection on your part. So even a neutral opinion can trigger that off in these high conflict people, the perpetrator. But why? What happens when you innocently or accidentally tell them that you think cheese sandwiches are nicer than ham at lunchtime while they're eating a ham sandwich? Well, they're going to attack you probably and say that you put them down and humiliated them, or implied that they're stupid in some way for liking the ham sandwich. And because of the overblown feelings that they've got here that come from their own deeply entrenched and internalized shame and insecurity, any differences of opinion or taste will be viewed as a personal attack and a horrible assault on their self-worth. Even if the subject matter is innocent, such as which season of Game of Thrones is the best, or what to eat for dinner, whatever that is. Now, healthy people can understand that, you know what, we are all individuals. We all have different tastes, opinions and dislikes. That's just the way humans are. But a narcissistic or high conflict perpetrator, they cannot deviate. They cannot tolerate any deviation from their own narrative or their own worldview. And that is true in relation to all of their likes and their tastes and their preferences too. They don't view you as an individual, either consciously or unconsciously. They view you as an extension of themselves. So, this is a little bit like an inanimate object that they own, rebelling against them. It does not compute for them that you might have your own opinions. So, if you disagree with him or they see this as a perceived slight, what's going to happen? They're going to seethe internally and kind of let that fester and nurse that resentment and water it and kind of nurture their resentment. And they'll do that if raging is going to cause them to be seen as the bad guy by others, because obviously the opinions of perfect strangers and people, their image is very important to them. So if losing their temper is going to affect that, then they won't do it. But or if they're currently love bombing you, it's not likely that they will do it. But that will eventually come out, and it will come out explosively in rage or verbal aggression, or maybe even sometimes violence, especially when they're preparing to devalue you or getting ready to discard you, getting rid of you in some way. So, unrealistic expectations here, they can also be about being eternally unsatisfied no matter how much you give or how far out of your way you go to meet this person's needs. What you've got to know is that they are essentially a black hole of demand, and what you give is going to be sucked into that endless void of their inner shame. That hole can't be filled. So it's probably best not to try. So we're going to look at an example of what that might look at. So let's just say maybe you've got a partner, they're coming up to your house to visit you, or a relative even, and you go out of your way to make sure they have all the right foods that they like because they're very picky, and make sure you have somewhere nice to go with them and a cool activity to do. Yeah, they'll turn up, but they're not going to be satisfied with that. They will find fault. This food wasn't as good as last time. Somebody else did it better. I didn't really enjoy the movie you chose. So, yeah, even if you know for a fact that that's their favourite movie, they might very well disagree with you. So they're going to find fault. And yeah, they might even say things like, I don't know why I bothered making this journey. And they're going to have those subtle put downs for you. They're going to be devaluing your efforts. So another thing that's going to happen is their needs are always going to come first. In their minds and in their life, the high conflict perpetrator, this person. And they expect you to put theirs first too, always and ever. And that doesn't matter whether you are sick or whether you have other responsibilities to attend to. So in the above scenario, maybe you haven't been very well, and you've had someone, your high conflict person visiting you, but you still have to run circles around them. And you'd be feeling very anxious about keeping that person happy, and that will make you even more exhausted. So they don't really care what you have going on. It's not really on their radar, your difficulties or circumstances. They're going to expect you to just keep going and to be meeting their needs. Another thing that your perpetrator might do is move the goalposts. We mentioned this earlier. If you somehow do happen, unbelievably, to meet their exacting standards for attention, admiration and validation, they're just going to keep moving that. So you really are in a no-win situation here with these excessive demands. They're just going to keep coming. And the outcome of this is eventually, obviously, that person will explode in a rage at you. But if you do manage to actually try and set a boundary with that person that's making you uncomfortable with these demands, then they're probably going to attack you again. So yeah, whatever you do here, it's a lose-lose situation for you. And the best way that you can handle these excessive demands, obviously, is to not play this game, is to take your ball and go home, and not do that. So yeah, so this is this is a really important thing that you will see in emotional abuse, unrealistic demands. So if you recognize any of these in a relationship that you're in, maybe you want to share your experience of that, put that in the comments, let me know. And I'd be really interested to know what effect those unrealistic expectations have had on your life, whether they've affected your well-being and your health. All of that stuff. It's really fascinating stuff. So go right ahead and share that if you want to, if you feel comfortable doing so. Thank you for watching the video. The next one I'll be doing will be about another element of emotional abuse and how we can recognize that. So stay tuned to the channel and keep a watch for updates, and the next, because this is kind of part of a series that I'm doing. I will see you next time. Thank you for watching, everybody. I will see you again. Oh, thank you.